There are over 6,000 species of animals on our planet, and they range in behavior from the chilliest to the most ferocious. But sloths are definitely among the chilliest animals on Earth. They're slow-moving, sleepy, and generally pretty laid back. So why are sloths the way that they are? Well, it turns out that their super chill vibes come down to one major factor: their diet. Hi, and welcome to this channel. Sloths hang out in the trees all day long, munching on leaves, buds, and fruit. And while that sounds like a pretty sweet gig, these guys aren't exactly living the high life. In fact, sloths have a pretty tough existence. First of all, they're not very energy efficient. Unlike most mammals, sloths can't regulate their own body temperature, so they rely on the sun to warm them up. And because they spend most of their time in trees, they don't have easy access to the sun. This means that sloths can get pretty cold, especially at night. On top of that, sloths are constantly at risk of being eaten. Their main predators are jaguars, harpy eagles, and humans. And if any of those guys get a hold of you, you're probably not going to make it to the next sunset. So why do UNT sloths get off their butts and do something to defend themselves, or at least escape? Well, it comes down to their diet. You see, sloths eat a lot of leaves, and leaves aren't exactly nutritionally dense. They're mostly made of cellulose, which is hard to digest. As a result, sloths have huge guts with specialized bacteria that help break down the cellulose so that they can absorb nutrients. And this process takes a lot of energy. In fact, sloths only get about 10% of their energy from their food. That means that for every 100 calories they eat, they can only absorb about 10 calories. The rest just goes to waste and gets passed through their system. So sloths get very little energy from their food, but they also expend very little energy. They have slow metabolisms and they move slowly through the trees. This means that they don't use much energy keeping their bodies running. As a result, sloths can get by on very little food. In fact, a sloth can go several weeks without eating. However, this also means that if they expend a bunch of energy doing something like running away from a predator, it can take them a long time to recover. So sloths basically have to choose between expending a bunch of energy and being at risk of getting eaten. Given that they've evolved to be super chill, it seems like they'd rather just hang out and hope for the best. And this strategy actually makes some sense. You see, sloths are part of an incredible phenomenon known as the sloth paradox. This is the idea that despite their slow speed and lack of defenses, sloths don't seem to get eaten all that often. In fact, when researchers have tracked jaguar prey over the years, they've found that sloths are rarely on the menu. Jaguars generally prefer to eat other animals like monkeys and deer. Even when sloths have been killed by jaguars, it's usually been by cats that are inexperienced hunters or sick. This doesn't mean that jaguars never eat sloths, but it does suggest that they aren't all that interested in them as a food source. And there are a couple of reasons for this. First of all, jaguars are generally more active during the day when sloths are sleeping. This means that sloths are easy prey, but it also means that jaguars have to expend a lot of energy chasing them down. Jaguars are big cats, after all. They need lots of energy to keep their bodies running. So if they can catch a sloth, sure they will, but they would rather save their energy and eat something easier. Secondly, sloths have a nasty trick up their sleeves, or really hanging off their backs. You see, sloths have algae that grows on their fur. This stuff doesn't just look cool, it also stinks, and the smell might be enough to put off even the most determined predator. So, thanks to their super chill lifestyle, sloths have managed to survive for millions of years. And they show no signs of slowing down anytime soon. For more information on sloths, check out the link below. But for now, let's just appreciate the fact that they're some of the laziest, sleepiest animals on Earth. Speaking of being sleepy, it's time for me to take a nap. I'll see you next time.